Okay, so you're continuing to send units forward, and at this time it's like continuing to send units forward. Going through this passage is dangerous for anything really, especially if it's alone, because it's just going to get cornered. I would tend to try to bring my pawns over the hill and just sit them on the hill, and except if you bring them over the hill, then if you bring them over the hill and then come down the hill and then there's a grunt there, the grunt can just chase you back up the hill, and so that might be less than ideal. But something that seemed to work more for Therxyy this game is just bringing them around the side. All my units are going to be in the middle of the map, so they can get to either side if they need. So if you come around the side, and it shouldn't take you too much longer to come around the side, that should play out better. Okay, and so yeah, I'm just pushing across the map, and let's look at this. I do want to pay attention to the APM. So he queues them out. If you're going to do this, and if you're going to send them across the map, group them first. Because if they're all spread out like this, I can pick them off one at a time. And if I had radar or scouts or whatever over here, it would have actually been really good for me to just drop a radar right there after the metal extractor. Maybe send out a couple grunts there to stop that. And if I had a radar like here, then I can see anything coming through. And so if you just group them together before you send them in, that means if you get into my base and want to have them grouped together, they're already grouped together, and that's going to be more advantageous. I don't get as much time to arrange my units into a good formation, because your units are already in the good formation and they're not going to take any time moving into that formation. I mean, if it was like ticks, like something you could also do is like send ticks ahead of them and to like try to find the gaps and stuff, because like you kind of might want to spread them out in order to get that coverage of line of sight, find where the weak spots are, so you don't just run all your units into the most heavily defended place because you didn't know where was defended or not. Yeah, I would be putting out ticks as well if you can afford your APM and just doing that. Meanwhile, I'm just sending these grunts in because I know I can get them out if need be. I mean, they're in a line, but it's probably less than ideal to split them over the mountain like this. And so the same thing, it's like group them before I'm sending them in. Yeah. Although you can get away with it more with grunts spreading them out. Kind of. Yeah, so I've grouped them now, and I've deliberately split them either side of the base. I've also brought two here. Have a nano turret for you. This is too many wind generators, I think. Yeah, see, I've got a couple nano turrets, and I'm on 12. And, okay, you're only on 10. But for the number of construction turrets you have at the moment, that is, yeah, too many. And here's another thing. Okay, you've brought this constructor out and walked it all the way over here, which has taken like 30 seconds to a minute or whatever. And it's built 2 laser towers. So let's go and say we have... between the two, that's about 4,000 build time, which for a constructor is... we'll just do 4,000 build time. And compare that. That's 3 pawns that constructor could have built instead of building those 2 laser towers. If it just stayed at the factory. And that's kind of important, because it's also just kind of going to up and die here. Because it's caught alone. I mean, if you're paying attention, if you can get it to safety. But I think it would be better if it simply just hung around base a little longer, built you a few more pawns, and then came out with those pawns and built a radar. But then you can like use the ticks for early warning or something. Yeah, we have raiding up here. So again, we've got the group, and they've come together. We have this over here. I honestly, if you had a tick here, because the upside of a tick is that we have 430 line of sight on the pawn, we have 500 on the grunt, and then we have 600 on the tick. You can see where the grunts are without ever coming into view, and so it's a lot easier for you to kind of scout around and find things like this without really worrying about setting me off that you're there. Honestly, I can't quite piece together what's happened here. I've been trying to pay attention and call out things, but it doesn't really account for the discrepancy between us. I built more constructors, and I sent out a few of them and they died, but then I resurrected them and I sent them out. I sent my commander out of base a lot earlier, and that's super important because the commander's going to build really fast. I think my commander's built, or no, that was a constructor. So I've been building one constructor to every 2 grunts I put out. And I've produced about 1.3k more metal. As far as I can tell, this is just a thing of incremental gains turning into bigger gains. Earlier on I had a 500 metal production advantage because of how long it took to put out that second metal extractor, I think. It was partly that and like getting to extra metal extractors. All the reclaim and res being on my side of the map, killing the 5 extra pawns, and then that gets me extra build power so I can put out these constructors faster, and get more metal extractors, get my commander out of base. And even though I've lost everything, it's just, the gap's just widened, and you've been raiding, but like, because there are more pawns. I've killed a constructor over there. I killed a few grunts and a metal extractor there. I killed pawns. I killed a metal extractor over there and a constructor over here. And then they're just... what's that? 17 wind generators and 19 wind generators. So you have... there's a single construction turret up here and more wind generators than up here. So if we look at the energy axis, we have... that's too much for me as well. Like, I have too many wind generators, and it would be better if I had an energy storage than maybe a few of these wind generators. Like, say, if I lost 4 of them and had an energy storage, that would be pretty powerful. But 25,000 energy access is huge. That's like you could potentially have got rid of like all of these wind generators and just run on the rest. That's another 6 pawns that you can have out on the map, or like another few constructors, and it could have turned the tide of controlling things. Part of what would have happened with the difference is because I killed more of the units in the engagements in my base, because they were fights in my base, so I'm probably gonna do that. Even if you're equal skill, fights in the enemy base is gonna be advantage to the enemy because it's closest to their base. They have more units there. And then I just walked my units straight across the map, and by the time I get to your base, you may have like caught up to me, but I'm fine to just raid and surround, and you kind of can't protect anything. Like, the number of units I have in your base is roughly equal to the number of units that you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've kind of killed 1 for 1, which is fine, but because I have so much more on the map, then even with all this raiding you're coming through my base, it's like I'm producing twice as much metal. I don't care about losing a single metal extractor. In fact, I just get reclaim on these pawns before they really destroy much else. And while you're destroying stuff in my base, I'm destroying stuff in your base. And because I'm ahead, it's more impactful when I destroy stuff in your base because there's a greater portion of your stuff. It hurts me less, it hurts you more. And so once you're on the back foot, you kind of have to make sure you're trading efficiently and like really efficiently. Yeah. Let's look at this. So we have, yeah, because there's a really slight deviation in the line, and like they're almost going at the same angle, but it's like over a few minutes they just deviate. You've got the same on the energy used. Metal produced, it's really similar. That's actually really interesting, because if our metal produced is really similar all the way, and you start falling behind in metal used, that tells me that the difference in our production, can we actually like, metal produced, metal used, so the deviation happens around there. So that initial metal production probably has an impact on my ability to increase here, I would expect, because those are like going to be your basic metal extractors in your base, and then that's my expansion gradually moving away from you there. So because it's a law of very small numbers, basically. Very small numbers having very big impact. And then it's like, if you look at the energy produced versus the energy used, it's like, again, you're producing way more than you're using. Here, I suspect some of what's going on here is you weren't using as many of your resources as me. It wasn't just that I was producing more. Yeah, you're not using your resources as well. Or I guess you started with less, with fewer, and so that's fair. But my guess would be this difference here is largely responsible for that difference there. Yeah, and then we've got just general damage efficiency things. By the end of the game, my damage efficiency was down, but early game, superior damage efficiency. Alright. So yeah, GG, and thanks for the games, and I really hope that helped. It kind of felt like a scattered review, and I didn't really end up talking about APM as much as I'd hoped. I'm gonna have to work out how I talk about that, because I'm kind of confused how to focus about. I mean, I guess. Would my viewers complain if I watched that again and just watched his camera and watched his APM? Because that might be interesting and valuable. It's only like a 7-minute game, and I'll hopefully pause a lot less